Sabéis que los eventos, para que se puedan realizar, necesitan primero gente que los quiera hacer y segundo, obviamente dinero para poder pagarlos, porque si no tuviéramos esta sala, pues estaríamos en un lodazal ahí sufriendo con el ébola en vez de con el coronavirus. Entonces, es muy importante que cobremos entrada. Además, nosotros nunca hemos querido hacer un evento gratuito, siempre hemos querido que el evento fuera de pago, porque la gente tiene que entender que las cosas que tienen contenido cuestan, ¿vale? Es importante y para nosotros es esencial, pero tampoco queríamos cobrar una salvajada de dinero en las entradas, entonces ahí es donde la función de los patrocinadores es esencial. Entonces, patrocinadores como RSA, que ha estado con nosotros durante varios años, es esencial. Y para nosotros, bueno, es un placer tener un speaker como vamos a tener, que nos va a hablar un poco de que el enemigo de mi enemigo, ahora Stefano lo va a comentar. Entonces presento a Stefano Maccaglia de RSA.
Grazie.
Welcome to RootedCon, and you have all the public for you, so go ahead. I will give you the figures of the time you have, okay?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, guys, let's just present a bit, an introduction before. First, sorry for my spaghetti English, but it's definitely better than my Spanish, so this is the first thing. Second thing is I prefer to have an interaction with you. So my presentation is definitely targeted to present a case I investigated in the past, but I want to have the chance, if you like, to have a small interaction, a short interaction in several moments of the presentation itself. So this presentation is not commercial, it's out of fun engagement, but definitely integrates some advices about our product just because they speed up the process of investigation. And I'm not telling you about the RSA product for the goal to sell you this product. It's not this point. The only thing is that in several cases they help speed up the process, but we can do the same slowly with different things. So let's start who I am. I am a cracker of the early 80s. I started with the Commodore C64. I went into cracking a lot of software when I was a kid, especially because I was having fun with the chance to remove protection, especially if somebody knows about CinemaWare software. CinemaWare is closed, so there is no problem in this. I was cracking the software of this, the games of this software house. So it was nice because they were having a lot of challenges into there. I started my career in a digital corp, but I went into several other big companies worldwide. I born as a networker in the ICT sector, but I was still interested in cracking, and I went into the pen testing bandwagon soon as Nimda and Blaster came up, and from that point on, I moved from the pen testing to the incident response several times, till the moment when in 2009 I decided to go forth in the IR analysis in the IR field, and from that point on, I am leading features in RSA incident response team. I am a focal point for malware analysis for especially, but other items as well, and I am leading investigation in several cases. The IR response team is investigating, and it covers a lot of different cases like APT attacks, advanced sophisticated actors, but also criminal activities. We have cooperation with several entities, governmental entities in EMEA and also in the US. We study also sometimes commodity malware like ransomware, crypto miners, stuff like that, just for the sake of support of our customer that can be targeted by them. And we have been asked to provide coverage on several cases of copyrighted and patented material stolen. We, in time, developed the process of investigation. This is not really much different from the typical NIST, FIRST, and other methodologies, but having the chance to leverage on our technology, we separated the investigation process in three main streams, like the network forensic, the log analysis, and OS forensic. For two of these ones, OS forensic and network forensic, we have the products. For the third, we normally leverage on the typical tools that are available for free. On the malware analysis, we approach with the structured approach, separating the tools that we use, just for the shape of having every analyst aligned. But in the end, the goal for the malware analysis is to generate additional IOCs, indicator of compromise, that can be useful to track the bad actors in the place. What we have developed upon that is the concept of actionable IOC. So when we close one investigation, we normally tend to study the chance to generalize some of the IOCs in order to use them for the attribution in the future engagements. So we normally tend to test the malware, test the tools that we have identified in order for us to be able to, based on the fact that we have 3 malware of the same family, generate one single IOC that can cover all of the 3 in order for us to be able, in case where another variant came up, potentially to identify it without having the burden to start the malware analysis again. It's just to speed up the process then. I want immediately to jump to the most juicy arguments that are the engagement. The engagement ran in 2018, and it went from Middle East. Advanced actors, I am not telling you about state sponsor or not, you can judge yourself, but advanced actors are very interested in Middle East environment, especially now because of the political changes and the geopolitical tensions between states. So in the area, we notice a growing set of activities from multiple attackers, both local and foreigners. So in time, we supported several cases, governmental agencies, oil companies, other companies like that. And this is one of the cases involving the governmental agencies. The governmental agencies, the governmental agency, the customer, contact us stating that in August, 3 months earlier, they were having trace of a malicious actor in their network. They just barely discovered on October. We immediately went there. Luckily, in this case, the customer was having part of our gear in place, part of our technology in place, but in case where it's needed, we can deploy immediately and start digging again into the environment. What we started to check from the environment, the customer was alerting that they found bad things into the repo server. The repo server is a web application with the storage included that was used for share and passing of internal data, not necessarily sensible or private data, between people. And it was having the chance to reach internet. But in this server, they notice material belonging to these other servers here that were contained into a very strict and protected area where governmental items and agency data was stored. So we started to look at the traffic through our platform that can allow us to carry out network forensic to see if there is any situ or any other anomaly in the network traffic. But obviously we were also asking the chance to analyze the endpoints, because in general this type of occurrences is linked to multiple different entry points into the environment. When, for our experience, when a targeted attack occurred and the attacker is starting to steal and exfil the data from the environment, the attacker is very confident. So it means that they have at least a couple of different areas from where they can access the environment. So they can even think of losing one point by the investigation of somebody, but still having the chance to continue to do their job. So we start thinking that the repo was just one of the channels for the attacker to exfiltrate the data, probably the most easiest for him, but we were looking for the other endpoints and to investigate the data center where the Active Directory infrastructure was working, because in cases like this, again, when, for experience, an attacker like that is starting to exfil data, he already have collected a number of administrative accounts, local or domain accounts. So we start digging in this. Obviously, we consider at the beginning the repo breached, but obviously also these ones breached in a way or another, because they collect the data from these servers. The original artifacts that the customer provide are illustrated up there. They were stored as a JPEG file. Obviously, they were not JPEG file, into a log folder of the repo web server. One of the file that were contained into these RAR files, RAR is shown here, was having this name. The folder and all the files into this folder were encrypted, but even in case where you encrypt, the RAR encryptor, the RAR compressor, even if you use the encryption, can give you the chance to know the name of the name of the files into the folder, into the archive. So we started with this. Obviously, this evidence here alarmed the customer. But from that point on, we start investigating. So we go into the MFT. You guys know what is an MFT? Probably yes, but I'm just asking. It's a master file table of Windows systems. So there is the table where every single file system operation is stored. So every file is enumerated there in Windows environment, in Windows file system. So we identified 2 files, but the date of these files were concerning, because we were investigating something at the beginning on the August of 2018, but all of a sudden we discovered that the attacker potentially was there since the end of December 2017. So it's about 8 months. And this is potentially good into our frame of the attack. Normally, the attacker takes time to expand, move laterally, get the control of the environment, and then start to exfiltrate the data. They are very patient, dedicated, they wait. They are not in a hurry to collect this, more or less. So, again, what these 2 files are? The 2 files are, one is an archive of passwords, the temp1.txt, and this file was generated by the w.txt, that is the Windows credential editor, is a tool, is not a malware, is a standard tool that can be used into the Microsoft environment to collect and enumerate accounts. So basically, this issue doesn't tell us much about the attacker, just that some accounts were breached by this action, but the folder where the credential editor was dropped, the IME, is a strange folder that in time oil rig APT group belonging to the Iranian area has seen using it frequently. So we started framing the attacker, considering that the agency can be a target of interest from this type of attackers. So let's move further in this. This is the content of the text file that I showed you earlier. It's a temp file, but text file. Some of the password I covered because they were properly set and they are part of the agency. Others are in the clear, just to let you know the level of complexity of these passwords. So, again, these accounts were breached on December 2017. At this point, we started digging with the endpoints to try to figure out from where the attacker do this. So, the repo server revealed a significant number of failed logon on the day the w.txt was dropped. It's a good sign, right? They probably were attempting to access with non-working accounts. But they came to collect this account from somewhere. And all of a sudden, close to the time when the multiple attempts were made, but they were failing, one attempt goes in from one IP address, this one. This is coming from the workstation network segment. Unfortunately, the workstation was having dynamic IP lease. So the DHCP was there. So it takes, it was more or less about 10 months earlier. So we were having a problem to find a way to link this IP address with an antenna computer. But in the end, luckily, we were able to track it by the proxy logs, because they were storing proxy log for a lot of time, I mean, a year or more. So thanks to that, we were able to dig into and find which was the original workstation accessing the repo server and dumping the credentials. We went into this workstation, but immediately we discovered this. The event of the login service was shut down on August 2018. Apparently, we can have the original data of the late December 2017, but unfortunately, the attacker was also able to clear these logs. So we were not having any clue from the logs about how the attacker goes in. And going into the tracking data of our endpoint solution, we were able to identify some action carried out onto the environment in August that was interesting. Basically, what you can see here is the attacker executing with net use access to other folders in the network. So, lateral movement, password stolen already, a machine compromised, another machine, a workstation compromised. We were looking to understand a little bit more about what's going on. I mean, we already know that it's a breach, but guys, what you think about this right now? What you do as a next step in this case? Somebody has an idea? Please, don't be shy. I mean, I like to interact. If you don't like, I'm sorry for that. Anybody has an idea? I'm sure you have. Okay, let's dig into what is this and what is next. Okay, the S4, this guy here, the machine where the attacker accessed the repo server, belonged to a system administrator, allowed access to almost everything. Reviewing the log and tracking data, we highlighted a number of session IP addresses used by the adversary to access this system. The problem was that being the system administrator laptop, it was having a lot of communications and connections. So to highlight the ones like this one as malicious, we were having the need to understand, for example, if this guy was active, the system administrator was active at this point in time, for example. Anyway, thanks to the review of network traffic and logs, I will show you later, we were able to track the host that was the bridgehead towards the workstation that was used to access the repo server. The owner of the Akimi host, this other system, was a lead developer of the environment that were having several accesses from his system from outside of the agency. Unfortunately, however, we were having not the chance to investigate something before this date, so December was not, December 2017 was not into our system to directly track what was going on. So we need to rely on different things. We started to investigate the system, however, And all of a sudden, we discover these two elements here. We collected these two items, and they belong to, apparently, scripts deployed into this folder. That is a strange folder for that. And under the name, apparently legitimate name of NVIDIA update. Our system show up the items by reporting autorun on the unseen autorun file in app data local. That is a strange thing. Here is the execution and the execution time collected. However, we were able to track from this system by looking to the MFT the big picture about how the Akimi host, the lead developer system, was breached. He received, together with 4 other people, an email containing an attachment in XLS, an Excel file with the training. So basically, he got this email from apparently a sound source, and he opened it, and immediately he got a macro enable request. He enabled the request. He was just the only one to activate the macro out of 5 attempted from the attacker. The macro executed the VBS script that once started, download the PS1, the PowerShell script from a specific system. This happens out of the environment, in the developer's home or somewhere else, okay? Not into the agency. So it was not traced by the firewall or the other defensive systems. Soon as the DN PS1 is downloaded and processed, basically the attacker switched to another C2 with this script executed that basically activate a recursive execution of the VBS script in order to ensure the persistence. It's a very basic persistent mechanism, but it was effective. And every time he started communicate with DNS through internet to another C2. This is where we identified this once we were able to track the files. And because it happens every now and then, we were lucky to identify one of the occurrences. Okay? And based on the tracking data we have, we were able to identify how he scheduled the persistence. So basically, he scheduled through a scheduled task with this peculiar type of command into the system through the N PS1. So we start to consider the big picture, right? And this is how we trace the Akimi host through the network forensic. So basically, we look for the IP address of the S4 host, and this one, the one that was using to access the repo system. And in about 10 days, we discover these two systems communicating with SMB that were peculiar. And thanks to that, we started to investigate Akimi, and also we started to look into the Esker host, another host. The malware, we were having the IP address of the malware at this point, the DC2. So we started to look into this and identify additional systems that were compromised. But the vast majority of the communication, these are the number of sessions. So in 12 hours, this is the number of sessions the Akimi host created to the C2. You can see, okay, it's very noisy. I agree with you. And several sophisticated attackers are not that noisy in an environment. But this one, that is a little bit more basic, normally tends to be extremely chatty, extremely noisy. Thanks to this, we identified 3 C2, not just one. And this is the whole picture, a summary a graphical summary of what was going on in this based on the Iranian actor. So these are the 3 IP addresses we tracked about the attacker C2. This is the time and the host Akimi, how it reached the S4 with lateral movement. S4 was not having the UPD VBS or the MS PS1 in it to avoid, from the attacker perspective, the evidences, immediate evidences from the administrator of the network about something fishy. So they don't install, they install a backdoor, REMEDIATION, and they install in a folder, another folder, a share scan that is basically a Samba scanner to highlight the presence of other share folders in the environment. From this S4, he got the lateral access to repo, dumped the credential, and from that point on was moving laterally and installed the malware on other systems, just to ensure the chance to have a back channel, a secondary and tertiary channel. Okay, in about 8 days, not really a big engagement from this perspective, we were able to review all the compromised hosts, analyze through the IOCs, have the big picture, have the timeline. Timeline is extremely important in an incident. If you put all your findings in a timeline and something doesn't fit into this, you're probably missing something. So in this case, it was almost clear from point A to point Z what was going on. So we started to arrange, with the support of the customer staff, the organization of the remediation. Obviously, one of the most important aspects in investigating environment like this is to force the customer not to touch the infected system while you start identifying them. Because soon as you cut the communication of one or you remove one, the attacker can be informed and everything goes down south. So it's better to avoid that. And obviously we force this. But again, you can imagine a manager looking to all these hosts, all this exfiltrated data already done, all these things, and it's difficult to convince every day in the, in the meeting to slow down, take time. Anyway, we suggested a number of different actions for the remediation, right? And it was extremely big for them to do because full password domain reset, including services account, removal and rebuild of compromised system, but more, the adoption of two-factor authentication and removal of local authentication that their administrator, they were relying on this every day. So it was heavy for them. So we scheduled to have the removal, making steps, but in 2 months to complete everything. So we decided to wait for the time to expel the attackers and to let the customer, with the proper procedure, ruin the potentially any exfiltration data that we know at that point, like the RAR files and stuff, just modifying internally the archives. So when they collect it, they can't rebuild the internal information that they stole. So that's a common practice for the IR. Anyway, there was just one item that wasn't fitting, and again, this is related to the timeline and the explanation of the incident. We found in a system during the investigation this strange thing here that wasn't properly fitted into the big picture. This was a VirtualBox driver from Oracle, in particular from Innotech company, but is a different flavor of the VirtualBox driver. An old VirtualBox driver that was installed into this system. And we don't know why. We started to dig into this, and scoping this VirtualBox drive allowed us to highlight another 2 items that were in the same place and were extremely suspicious. We presented these evidences to the customer, and thanks to malware analysis, review of things, we highlighted that this was belonging to Epic TURLA attacker. Epic TURLA is a different stage in terms of sophistication. Obviously, we were concerned about this discovery, but the customer said, no, don't worry. we know about that. This is the only system that is still having this, but it belongs to a previous infection, a previous attack that we have managed, that we have solved, that was handled in the past, in late 2016, early 2017. So, okay, we look through the network forensic to the communication of this host, and apparently this host was not communicating outside with any suspicious communication, any suspicious protocol. And so we say, okay, you mentioned this as a normal thing. We still are a little bit concerned about and skeptical about that, but it's up to you. I mean, at one point I can't convince you to extend an investigation if you don't want to put money into it and you don't want to have any news about that. So, okay, let's go, let's do. One note, this package here is three different files, but belongs to the same package, basically. It's part of the Glazer package of the APT TURLA. I can tell you for sure about that because we have compared these tools, these files, with other and previous packages of Glazer found in different environments, and they match almost 100%. So, again, into the system, we also notice, just to complete the picture, all these injected processes traced by our solution. Again, the only confirmation about the previous attack, however, was the MFT analysis that date the VB box sys back to 2016. So, no problem. Any question, guys? I hope you like it, right? Nice. Thank you. So, let's move up. We come back to the customer premises 2 months later during the pre-flight checks for the remediation, the final blow against the Iranians. We kicked them out. But we run a number of checks through our network forensic platform. And well, we discovered something very, very strange. This is the traffic belonging to the original attackers that we investigate. From this moment in time, the machine where the infected, where the malware was in, was shut down and rebuilt, but just one, in order to see if the attacker was still relying on this or do you have additional system. We were counting on that. Anyway, from one point on, 2 weeks later, another type of traffic goes on the same C2, a totally different traffic. This is DNS, right? This is bits traffic. Bits is a strange beast because basically it's HTTP with the proper flavor, and it's used by Microsoft for updates, all right? So it's not normally typical to see bits going to strange IP, especially if they belong to C2 of attackers, right? So, okay, you say, Iranians have developed a new tool, a new arsenal? That's strange. However, it's be the chance. But we know already that bits protocol was used in previous engagement few months earlier by APT TURLA. So this evidence put everything in a different view. So, APT TURLA pounded OIREG? It seems so. Yes, that's strange. I mean, in my personal experience, I noticed in previous cases, cases where an attacker infects a machine, steal data, so all of a sudden another attacker steals the same machine, owns the same machine, but kicks out the other attacker and starts owning the machine himself, right? Using different C2s, obviously, or different access and protocols. But never in my life before I have something like this. And be honest, it was huge discovery from my personal perspective. Okay, this is a communication stream in a readable set of packets belonging to this communication stream in bits, okay? So the bit protocol communicate with the same C2 from a different system, obviously, on port 443, HTTP, not HTTPS, but again, this is bits. So, and look at a couple of things. This is the domain, this is the session ID, this is the user agent. Okay? Strange. Again, also, the response was having strange response, not aligned with the Microsoft standards, you know. So, we started looking into the host that was presenting these things, and we discovered this very interesting set of DLLs. This is the skipper implants, the skipper package from Epic TURLA. It contains 2 files executed through the DLL execution mechanism, but these 2 export 2 functions named 1W and 2W. The 1W is used to install the backdoor, and during the setup, it calls the 2W to activate the network socket. So you start having this with the geolocate, that is the 1W, and all of a sudden, it's configured the persistence and start digging into with the second module. So let's see. At this point, we start looking at things. We start blocking the C2 on one host, the one that we identified, in order, at this point, we convince the customer, okay, we can kick out the Iranians. Probably they already are not much in the place, but let's consider that we are facing a very, very complex attacker at this point. So we needed more time. It was painful for the customer, but we convinced it to do that. So we started playing the whack-a-mole with attacker in order to understand a little bit more about his techniques. And we stopped the communication with the original C2. But we were still looking into the bits, okay? And we found another C2, just because the bits protocol was started in an automatic fashion. It was not something interacted by the attacker. So from this perspective, if you stop one, probably there is a fallback mechanism that potentially communicates with another IP. And this is exactly what happened. So from the attacker perspective, blocking a C2 can be something that can happen, especially because this C2 was belonging to all rigs. So they consider, okay, they are starting to removing things from the oil rig. So they have already prepared the fallback mechanism to another IP. That's the IP. So immediately after cutting the connection to towards the first C2, all the attacker implants goes beaconing on the other C2. Soon as we restarted the connection toward the 46 host, the initial C2, everything goes quiet. Look. So, thanks to the finding, we start digging a little bit more into the system and the other systems that were communicating with that 2 IP addresses. And a second Trojan we identified, a .NET one. It was executed in different fashion. These are the evidences of this through the tracking. He presents himself like a temp file in the temp folder of the Windows, but it cannot be started unless you pass two parameters. If you don't pass 2 parameters, it doesn't work. So when we collect the file originally and we try to start executing it in sandbox with dynamic analysis on the host, it wasn't working. But as soon as we identify the tracking data of one of the execution, we highlight the presence of 2 parameters. So when you pass 2 parameters on the execution through the command line, it starts up. Okay. In the end, we identified the infected host, but more interesting, we found an interesting web shell implanted in the OWA web servers of the agency. The web shell was created in a way that is able to obtain credential every time a user logs on the OWA website. The credentials are stored in the local cache.ave encrypted in REGDEL encryption. That is a strange flavor of encryption for typical tools. That's also one of the things that interested us and make it more suspicious than ever. Every now and then, the attacker collected the stolen credential by collecting the HAV file, dropped it into the folder. But the functionality was tricky. The web shell contained a form of authentication that can allow you to collect the files only if you present yourself with a pre-shared key. So, in case where you browse the website, attempting to find where the HV are deployed, or to collect this HV directly from the website, it doesn't work. You need to present yourself with the proper cookie to be able to access the stored data. And that's tricky. Looking at the web shell code, we identify a number of actions, very, very basic, but very effective for the goal and the purpose of the attacker. And this is a common access, a common session of the attacker accessing the web shell, where he presents the cookie with the trigger from an anonymizer IP, just to be sure nobody can track him with a potential IOC. And this is the command that runs. And this is the response, that obviously is the encrypted password dump. The reason why the authentication process goes through the owahout.spx, this is the default, because it's the attacker modified the logon ASP to include a reference to this particular page. So, very, very neat. Any question, guys? Okay, this is the epic show of epic TURLA in this agency. These are the two attacker C2. This is the silent Almasi system where VBox sys was still there. It's probably still there again. And these are the skipper implants, and these are the .NET implants installed into the environment. And this is the web shell. One thing that was also interesting is that through the Mahini host, one of the .NET implant, the attacker from this C2 was able to access third parties network, because this was accessible from the different people and accessing different environments, even outbound of the agency, outside of the agency. So, lesson learned. We normally run our session between us in the IR for the lesson learned. This was huge. Do not assume customer remediation carried out before you was necessary a success. Don't. Please don't. Do not rely on assumption that an apparently unrelated infection can be investigated lately. Do not assume sophisticated attacker is limited to the use of a dedicated infrastructure. In this case, this attacker used two. Very, very useful. Do not expect Epic TURLA to behave like common APT groups, and obviously think positive. Any question? Okay, I would say thank you, but I'm open to discuss about, I know you can consider me as a typical corporate guy that goes in an environment just for money, right? Yeah, I got you, but it's not that. We do also pro bono activities with several agencies that cover, for example, the protection of immigrants or the protection of dissidents. We went into investigating. One of the most interesting cases I ran was in a very important agency that cover and support the dissidents from the Chinese government, right? Uyghurs, for example. You know what? They went breached. Strange, right? they were looking for addresses where these people live. For what? You can imagine. So this is also a typical type of engagement I support every now and then during the year. And I will try to, have feedbacks from you in order to, even discuss about the methodology, about what DIR means. Because there is a lot of buzzwords and talks and things about DIR, but in the end, when we go to the roots of the problem, it's everything related to the knowledge and to the ability to confront with different cultures. So that's really something that I want to share with you as an experience. Okay, any question, guys?
First of all,
Thank you. I made it in time, right? Thank you.
no es necesario que preguntéis en inglés si queréis, ¿eh? Allá hay una, allí, en el centro. O sea, si podéis preguntar en ucraniano, chino, también lo podéis hacer, ¿eh? O en árabe.
Thank you for the presentation.
Thank you.
I have a question regarding the last bit that you regarding the Uyghurs.
Okay.
In the I suppose it's an APT from nation state, for example, China, let's say, that is prosecuting this group of people. In these cases, do you work with other organizations or other governments, and maybe you supply fake addresses to catch the spies or the government?
That's a really tricky question, and I thank you for that. The problem is, no, for real, the problem today for us as a community supporting somebody like this particular agency that covers the dissident is that soon as you have the IP addresses of the C2s or the people that is accessing, even if obviously you can imagine it's not directly the IP of his home, it's somewhere else, okay? But you can frame the attacker to specific method, to specific techniques, to specific face, because we know some of them, all right? Yeah. There is no chance to prosecute them. There is absolutely no chance. That's the pity thing of my job, because unless they make very big frauds and just the money is involved, and I mean, big fraud means, for example, Carbonac, to name one that I investigated as well, where the people cooperate together, the states cooperate together to trace these guys and jail them, part of them. In all the other cases, it's a governmental thing against an agency, and even if you frame them and you say, it's this one or this one, soon as the Interpol, for example, ask for details about this guy, the states say, we don't know where he lives. It's your citizen, yes, but we don't know where he lives. And that's all, game over. That's the problem. Obviously, when we investigate, we tend to provide coverage to other agencies as well about these IOCs, about the techniques, in order to share the knowledge and to prevent additional activities from the same IP, the same actor, the same attackers, and the same for the same goal. But this is the farther we can do from the perspective of reaction, you know what I mean? Again, in case where the money is at stake, there is normally a very quick reaction. I investigate another case involving the UN agency. UN is made by all of us, I mean, all the countries, right? Well, they targeted an agency that is developing the rural areas of Africa. There is one government, I don't want to say the name, but there is one government that actually is interested to buy the land. But there is absolutely a difference when you go to the people in a very well-developed place to say, I want your fields. And when you go before the agency requalify the environment and you just have nothing, and I say, I want your terrain, okay? So they breach this agency just to understand when this agency is planning to put the money on that. And they anticipate the agency. You can prosecute them? No, there is no chance. We know perfectly well who is it, but we can't.
Thank you.
Another question? I have one, Stefano.
Yeah,
Do you expect this behavior of TURLA pawning all rig to be in the future a model from one actor to pawning another actor? So for example, Sodino Kiwi or...
Okay, yes, thank you for the question, and I can tell you yes immediately, because we investigated this case with TURLA and Oilrig. Few months later, during other conferences, we went into knowing other cases like this investigated by other teams with the same behavior. TURLA, Oilrig, and now it is no more uncommon. At the time, 2 years ago, it was, whoa, that's strange. I can tell you another funny thing. In another case, investigating another environment, all of a sudden, the APTs start deploying crypto miners. They say, what? Is the crypto miner? Because obviously these crypto miners are extremely noisy. Right. I mean, from 20 sessions for an hour to 20,000 sessions in a minute, you know? So it's extremely noisy, and we can definitely point the finger and say, this is an APT that do that. So what I'm saying is, there are situations where the common sense cannot allow you to answer, but definitely strange things like this in the last 3 years happen. But for Epic TURLA, absolutely there are at least 7 or 8 different reports from different companies or agencies that report the same behavior.
So this means that, for example, with Sodino Kiwi, that they have the referrals, not only you have to take care of a lot of IOCs from several actors, but you have to take care of someone pawning the actor for, oh my God.
Yeah,
good.
Exactly.
Fantastic.
Yeah, more and more of that, yes, yes.
I see.
Any other question?
Someone, last question? I don't see it. Okay. Thank you so much, Stefano.
Thank you, guys. Thank you very much, Herman.